What is up, YouTube? We are back in the garage again, working on parts of this. Obviously the motor is completely disassembled if you've been following along. If not, we have an entire XLCH motor completely apart. Cases are over at my buddy's shop. He's given me a hand welding some of those up because my first go at it did not work out so well. I also did not do it the right way, which I knew going into it, but I figured I'd roll the dice and gamble on that one. Instead, here are the heads, which there's a little bit of darkness on the cast iron because these were just baked twice. The gloss black on here is actual powder. It is not fresh paint, so it's a little bit more durable than regular paint would be. It's a single stage gloss black, one level down from the highest one that I offer, and I didn't clear coat them or anything like that because I don't care that much. They are iron heads, but having a powder coating shop makes more sense to powder coat stuff instead of rattle can or paint it. Also holds up a lot better, which is gonna go through the test now because I have a ton of grinding to do on these heads. I just yanked the valves out. If you look at the valve faces, they're a nice gilded gold color. Trying to see if that shows up in the lighting. If you look at the back side of the valve, it's got that dark black color to it. The face is a nice gold. That is a high temp piston coating. So I have coated the valves, both of the valves, and the combustion chamber, which I don't know if I have enough light in the garage to display that. Let's see if I can get you guys closer here. That's the gold piston coating. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, look at the video that I posted right before this. If you're following along with the build and you're interested in anything that I'm doing on this stupid barn fire iron head, or these heads, or the rest of the motor rebuild, tear down any of those other things, or shovel head stuff and Ford stuff, do me a favor, hit the like button, or even better, hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to hit 500 by New Year's, so help me out. Costs you nothing, helps me out a ton, and then we'll dive into these heads. On these cylinder heads, I'm doing this way out of order, but I'm also trying to do a bunch of things that I typically have not done in the past. As of right now, here's the pistons that are also coated. I got the micro slick coating on the outside, on the skirt. That's why it's black. Raw aluminum on the ring landings, so those are all cleaned up. And then on the top we have that same gilded piston crown coating, which is really hard to see in this light. But went through all of the pistons, and by all I mean the two that are on this bike. So we got the micro slick coating, high temp coating. Ideally, in theory, what's going to happen is all of the heat will retain itself in the combustion chamber. So the top of the piston might actually get a little bit hotter, and the chamber of the head might actually get a little bit hotter. So in that squish band, and I know on 2-strokes this is much more relevant, on 4-stroke stuff, you don't typically talk about squish nearly as much, but all of the heat, essentially, if the piston coating works as it should, will basically be like mirrored. So it's going to be mirrored up from the piston and down from the combustion chamber. So it should retain all of the heat into that little combustion chamber pocket, which is what a combustion chamber is designed to do. In theory, I'm hoping that this should let me bump the timing a little bit more, pick up a little bit more power, and I don't know, noodle around. Sportsters to me are the perfect candidate for this because they like revs-ish, and you can beat the crap out of them. Just make sure they're lubed up and everything's got sloppy tolerances and send it. So I got the head sitting here. Here on the right-hand side is the cylinder head. This is high temp masking tape, fiberglass. If you're doing coating or just getting into it, a lot more expensive than the cheapo plastic stuff. I love this in comparison. I've used all of them. I've used the cheap vinyl stuff. I've used the high temp, everything. This is what I stick to. Costs more, tends to be crisper, cleaner lined, but the fiberglass tape I think works much better. You just got to keep a clean, fresh razor, and you will go through a lot more of them than you will on the plastic tape. But if you're using the plastic tape with the dull razor, it rips and tears and doesn't hold clean lines. This tends to be a little bit more solid. Like I said, costs a little more. I like it, but irrelevant in this issue. Here's the chambers. Here's our intake port, exhaust ports on the front. These are freshly coated. This is all ceramic coated. Not the greatest time to take your router grinder tool and grind away on your cylinders. I'm going to make a giant mess. There's going to be metal shavings everywhere. But if, this is a big if, let me see how much light is in here. if we look into this, you can see how porous and how bad the casting is on this. Not really that bad. I mean, pretty standard, stereotypical for 70s era Harley stuff. It's all cast iron, so you can see all the lumps and all the bumps. We're going to go through and clean this head up. You can see this big old lip down here at the bottom of the exhaust port too, all the way down into the chambers. I am not going to do a crazy amount of bowl cutting on these because we are going to port these for efficiency and flow in the easiest way possible. If you look down here, you can see now that it's blasted with the heat cycle on it, this is a smooth edge of the bottom of the port. This is all crappy casting marks. All of that is going to go away. So I'm going to get in here as best I can. I am not going crazy. I'm not going to take the long extended carbides and start carving this out like crazy with the die grinder and go crazy at all. It's not going to be a race bike. It's still going to be stock, but you can see these big ridges here. I'm just going to go in here with a grinder and do my best to smooth out whatever I can easily. Now, typically I would do this first, but I am running short on time. I wanted to do a full-on video of this, which still might happen, but at my work, I have access to a flow bench, which is open tomorrow. So if I can carve this one out, do one of these two heads, and try and get them on the bench and get some rough numbers. If I do a rough, down and dirty, super fast, not port job, but a clean up the port job, get that at least ground down so it's a little bit smoother, and then put the stock head that's untouched on the bench. I will come back ideally in the next day or two with some actual analytic numbers of valve lift at X amount of degrees and see how much flow we can actually pick up on a stock set of iron heads from a crappy old Harley. Probably not going to mess with the bowls too much because I really don't want to have to do valve seats. We'll see how it goes. If I mess anything up, then the heads will get completely redone and I'll carve them out farther. But as of right now, I just want to smooth them a little bit and then take a before and after. Not the most accurate result by any means at all because all of these heads are cast. You could have two heads, same day, 2-3 different castings apart, and they will have completely different ridges, casting flaws, and all of that other stuff, but it should give me a rough ballpark. Let me turn you guys around, let me get the grinder set up, replace the carbide that I got in there for aluminum, put a steel one in, and we'll be back. Okay, so if you are doing this on a set of shovel heads per se, with aluminum heads, do not use one of these is way too big for motorcycle stuff. You want a air one, which I don't have one of the straight ones, but you basically want one of these, this in compact air form. So it's going to be straight. You get your carbides that go into the end, and you can you have much more control than you will with something like this, especially on aluminum. You don't need much to carve out aluminum. I also tend to run the wide spacing on the carbide bits compared to this style. If you have never used a carbide before, be very careful. They are grabby, they are bitey. They will mess you up. They are not something to be taken lightly. I'm pretty lackadaisical on many of the things that I do. However, these somewhat terrify me. Now, what we are going to do, get these valves out of the way, and use a super fancy support. If I didn't coat these, I would have been able to chuck this up in a vise and work on this much more efficiently, but I was impatient. Might actually swap bits. This one's actually dulled out quite a bit. Still functions, but far from the best. But first little bit, you can kind of see in there, all those shiny bits is what's coming off. Let me throw a fresh bit in there. And we'll be right back. Got the new bit on here now. Okay, a couple quick seconds on here. Here's the lower side of the port. Like I said, you can spend hours and hours and hours and hours wasting your life away trying to get this really, really nice. If I was doing anything else with this bike, I would. I thoroughly enjoy this part, but I'm going to keep grinding away on this. If I had a better camera or a way of better visualizing this for you, we'd do a longer time lapse, but I don't. So I'll keep recording, but a lot of this will get cut or sped up so fast you can't really tell what I'm doing. I'll kind of update you as we go along. Quick little job on the bowl. Far from perfect. I'm using a tapered sharp bit. You want a rounded one to smooth all this out. I do have a ball one. I might go back over this later. But on the valve guides themselves, there's a ton of casting imperfections right along this ridge that we really do actually want to clean up. And then if you had a round bit, you could actually notch around this way and get a nice smoother flow through there. I'm going to hit the inside of the bowl now, and this is the part you got to be really careful with. I'm not going crazy on this. I'm just going to knock down, if this focuses, you can see how rough that casting is. I'm going to do my best to just get in there really, really quickly and smooth that out just a bit. Gonna have to switch the other bit for this one. Unfortunately, I was hoping this would be okay, but I actually do need something a little bit rounder. I can't get the profile I want. Okay, if there's any porters out there that do this professionally, do not watch any of what I did or tell me how shitty I just did doing this. But went through, got to what I could with the wrong tool, inside and out. However, I guarantee you when I put this on the bench and give you guys some numbers tomorrow, this is going to flow significantly better. That's a rough cut with a pretty coarse bit. You can now go through and hit it with a finer bit and kind of smooth that out a little bit more. Like I said, I don't plan on going too crazy. So now I'm going to continue working on the exhaust port. That was the intake port. I'm going to call that good for now. And we will put this one on the flow bench, and then I will put the stock one that is untouched, and then come back in the next couple days and maybe I can do a more detailed porting video, but a quick little one for you. Like I said, it's going to be time lapse. It's not that fun watching or listening to a grinder constantly just cutting and carving away. Then maybe I'll switch to some other bits and kind of smooth them a little bit. But for right now, we're going to try just that. So I'll get numbers on the intake and the exhaust port ported or cleaned up, not necessarily ported, cleaned up, and then one bone stock casting Mark 1. I do not think that I will be able to film on the flow bench. One, it's way too loud. Two, I don't know if that's okay yet, so I got to figure that one out. But I will get video and post the results of everything I get. Super rough. You want to go through and smooth all of these out. You want smooth airflow. I have a bunch of jagged edges and things like that, but it is cast iron, so it doesn't really cut all that well. But that to me is still going to flow better than the giant cast iron ridges. Same thing here. I still have a pretty, I don't know if you can see this, right along this edge. I still have a pretty big ridge there, but I don't like carving those out too much. Ideally, you kind of want it to ramp up here, so this is going to come through. I'm much happier with the outside of the ports. I do not have enough of the tools or the shapes I need to clean up the bowls really well, and the valve guides are still in. So if the valve guides were gone, you'd have a little bit more space, but you also don't want to go carving away at that too much because you do need some of the support. A lot more can be taken off. Intake side, obviously, bigger valve, bigger hole is much smoother than the exhaust side, but to me that's the more important of them anyway. I do have, actually there's one ridge down here on the exhaust port. I can feel it with my finger now. I don't know if this will show up. Actually, I think you might be able to see that little blob right down here. If you follow this finger straight down, it juts up a little bit. I'm going to knock that one down now that I see it this way. So I'll knock that down, but other than that, port's substantially cleaner. I don't have a ton of the big casting marks. Like I said, it's the sky's the limit on this, depending on how far you want to go. This to me is like a D+ porting job, but it's fast, and that's all the time I have for now. Either way, I'll throw it on the flow bench. Tomorrow, I'll give you the results from this head. I'll give you the results from the other head. You decide if it's worth it. Well, there you have it. One semi-ported cylinder. Again, nothing to write home about, but if you're working on this at home, you can get one of those routers pretty cheap. I would recommend an Air one for motorcycles. I use this for V8 stuff because it's cast iron, typically on the older stuff. And the Air ones, the little compressor I have at the home garage does not keep up. If I was doing this and wanted to go crazy, I would bring this over to the shop where I have a big 80-gallon 10-horse compressor and run that without any issue whatsoever in terms of air keeping up. In the garage, this would take me 10 years. Quick little one on the electric. I don't think it's the best way to go about doing that. I think you can do substantially better with better tools, better bits, different ones. I don't like these. I do really like these, though. The Acorn style. I don't know what their names are, but that's where we're at. If you're interested in the rest of the build or anything else, hit that like button, leave me a comment, let me know what you think, what else you want to see, what you don't want to see, how bad I just ruined this set of heads. If you know better, let me know. Please, 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 please. I love the information. I think this is an awesome forum to discuss, to have these conversations about cool old crap and trying to keep these things on the road. But I am trying to hit 500 by the end of the year, so if you can help me out, that would be fantastic. Hopefully we got shirts coming your way soon. Keep you updated as I get updated. Catch you guys later.